everybody. Welcome back to this time episode 28 of the BJJ101 Storeroom podcast. And again, today we've got a really awesome guest in Eddy or Edward Foster. Eddy, I always try to start with like a very simple question, just like, because we know you from the gym. We've been training with you for a while and coaching you and that type of thing. But for the people that don't know, just introduce yourself a little bit. You can go back as far. I like to start right at the beginning and then go all the way through chronologically. But, talk about your childhood, your upbringing, who you are as a person, what you do, and then also like along that journey, like where you got introduced to martial arts.
Sure.
Yeah.
No problems. Thanks for having me. I feel very honoured to be here.
No, thanks so much for coming in.
You and Eduardo, so thanks for having me. Well, look, I'm 55 years old now. My journey started, my mother was a single mother, and I got raised in a privileged upbringing until I was about 5. And then I ventured away from my home state, moved to Queensland, became a diving instructor. I was a nurse, I was a paramedic, had a lot of interesting times there, lived overseas for a couple of years as a diving instructor in Fiji.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I met my wife, who was an American tourist holidaying at the time. And we've been together now 27 years. We've had 2 children and, a boy and a girl. My son is 26, my daughter's 23.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and right now I work for a medical device company. We make ventilators, intensive care ventilators, and my role primarily is to teach doctors and nurses how to use the ventilators. So
Yeah.
that's what I do.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
I just want to ask a question, because we often find a lot of the people that we interview, and there's particular traits in the people that we talk to that have either started jiu-jitsu and been training for a while, or in Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belts, but they always have a history of playing or being involved in some type of sports and having a certain amount of discipline from that sports early on. How old were you when you started playing rugby league and rugby and that type of thing? 6
years old.
Okay,
Yeah.
So you've been playing from day one.
And I, like you, I went to boarding school, so that was kind of indoctrinated.
Yeah,
that, the discipline was there. And that was probably the hardest thing when I left boarding school. I loved rugby, and I thought I'll play for a local club side. And, to go and rock up for pre-season and have them drink beers after training, I was like, what are you doing?
What is this? You guys are,
How often? You're only training twice a week. How can you be successful if you're only training twice a week? We've got to be training 4 to 5 times a week, and weights. We've got to do all of this stuff. And they're going, hey, bro, no, just chill here. We train, we drink beer, and
that is the training.
Yeah, so I found that pretty hard. I did a lot of individual sports after that where, self-discipline was needed. And, I'm not the most coordinated person in the world, but I'm good at long, monotonous, boring tasks. So I used to paddle, the racing surf skis, kayaks, things like that in ultra-endurance events. I used to run marathons and things like that as well. Never elite, but just in there and enjoy it. And it's about having that determination to get to the other side.
For sure, 100%. I just find that's interesting to kind of pry into a little bit, because I think pretty much everyone we've spoken to that decided to commit to jiu-jitsu or has done well in life, whatever, they have some history of being extremely disciplined around sports for whatever reason. And I don't know why that kind of creates that kind of driven attitude to go and achieve things. And like I said, just getting across the the river or getting down the stream with the rolling stuff or whatever, but it just fosters that kind of mental kind of attitude to man, I'm just going to work hard to achieve whatever it is. Extremely disciplined, because you have to be to achieve in sports.
I wouldn't say that I'm extremely disciplined right throughout my life.
But we're not all perfect, but it just seems like a lot of people that have done well in the world have some history of doing sports and some amount of discipline in their early childhood.
Yeah. you know, what I saw, particularly at boarding school, was the discipline that we put in always yielded results.
Yeah.
You know,
Where did you go to boarding school?
in Sydney, St Joseph's
Okay.
at Hunters Hill. So
That's quite a famous.
yeah, famous rugby school.
Yeah.
So.
So you were born in Sydney?
I was born in Sydney, yes,
Okay.
and I moved to Queensland when I was probably 23.
Okay.
How did you feel about living overseas, and what was Fiji back then?
I was in Fiji in the early 90s, 91, 92, 93, and it was life-changing. We lived in a really beautiful island. It was a 5-star resort. You know, we lived the life of Riley. It was just a great life. We did the scuba diving and the game fishing and all of that, which was awesome. But what I learned over there was that family was everything. You know, I think in this day and age, in our society, we're too busy.
Yeah.
I remember classic, you know, that we didn't used to pay our staff huge amounts of money. Like our dive masters used to get paid $50 a week. And yeah, that was a good sum. But we couldn't get anyone to work on Thursday afternoon. And this was a 5-star resort. So if somebody came in and they wanted to go fishing or diving on a Thursday afternoon, we used to have to say, hey, sorry, can't do it. And they're like, why? And we said, well, it's rugby at the school today. And there was no matter how much money we offered, they would never, you know, no, I want to watch my son.
Put the work before their kids playing and their family supporting and stuff. Yeah, that's super interesting.
And the other interesting thing that I got out of that was the people, the guests were quite affluent. You know, like it was expensive to stay there. And they would often do a village tour. Yeah. And the village, it was a lot of thatched huts. It was a lot of like what your garden shed would look like, you know, and people slept under the one roof, and, you know, they may have a mat, but a lot of the time dirt floors. And the guests would come back to the resort after they'd gone to the village, and they'd say to me, oh, those poor people, you know, how can they live like that? How can, you know, like, that's terrible. I just want to give them money. And I said, when you were at the village, did you see adults laughing like you used to laugh when you were a 5-year-old kid? You know, like where you're almost wetting your pants, things are so funny. And they go, yeah. I said, well, how long since you've laughed like that? And they go, well, I don't know. And I said, well, who's got it right? Them or us, you know? So.
Yeah, I completely understand that. I think that money can isolate people a lot. You know, like suddenly our space become bigger, our properties are bigger, our cars are bigger, and we have less interpersonal relations, you know. And I always have a thought about this. You go to poor countries, they don't have much money, but they will make it. They seem to be happy all the time, you know what I mean? They celebrate with small victories, you know. Yeah. I remember I used to come back to university by bus, and you get inside the bus, there is maybe 500 people inside the bus. You don't know how you're going to get out of the bus. My whole concern was, am I going to get out of the bus, but I have to get out of the bus? You know what I mean? Like, because there's so many people. And you go, man, I'm going to get out of the bus. You know, like, they're going to wait. I'm going to go behind people. You get out of the bus. There's a guy doing barbecue, like a little barbecue on a stick like this, probably like 50 cents. And you get that, you know, it's like, yeah, this is life, you know what I mean? So it's small victories, you know what I mean? Yeah. They're so and you have these memories, so, you know what I mean? Like, you have vivid memories about these little victories, you know?
Yeah. No.
Good point.
We've definitely talked about this stuff before, about how most of us in like westernized countries that are like extremely privileged and we have so much opportunity, we're like a victim of that lifestyle. Like we're a victim of the opportunities that exist in this country. Like, it's so easy and everything's so like easily handed to people, and like I know people work hard too, but like a lot of the focus is on like, again, like external materialistic kind of things, as opposed to like just having that core family value of like, we don't care what works on and how much money you're going to pay us. This is our family time, and we're going to do that. And that's what we're living for right now, to support these people. And yeah, it's kind of lost in a lot of westernized countries. It's very interesting. but yeah, like this is seems to be the case in like most scenarios. Like the closer what people are to poverty, for the most part, the closer they are to being natural, like their natural kind of gender scenarios, and everyone kind of has their role. And because they have purpose, they're just happier because they have real purpose for their existence. They're not confused about what they should be doing in life because they have so many options and everything's kind of done for you. They have real purpose. They rely on each other to fulfill the different roles and jobs in their life, and it gives people meaning.
Yeah. You know, I remember every before I went to Fiji, all I really knew about Fijians were the Hong Kong Sevens. They used to always win the Hong Kong Sevens. And I remember watching the Hong Kong Sevens way back when, and, you know, you saw this fantastic try where they were flicking it between their legs and over their head, and it was just the biggest fluke you could ever see. And I went, wow. But then when I was over there, every afternoon at 4:30, work stopped, rugby started, and it was all one-touch rugby. So it was like touch football, but you only got one touch and then you had to surrender the ball. So that's where they learnt to quickly get rid of the ball. Yeah. And, you know, quite often you're talking about, you know, privilege and all the rest of it. The ball, someone forgot the ball. No worries. And, you know, it was really early in my tenure. We don't have a ball, and they climb the coconut, pull a coconut, you know, and they play with that. And they're just as happy, you know. So it was awesome. Awesome experience.
That is cool. Funny kind of little story that they do it like that.
Eddy, how jiu-jitsu came in your life?
Well, it was awesome the way it came to me. My son, as a teenager, had some real problems. He had some issues, and he went on the wrong side of the tracks. He was into lots of different substances, and we were really worried for him. We were losing him. You know, we didn't know what to do. I showed him an inspirational clip by Jocko called Good, and he was just vacant with it. You know, didn't think he took any attention to it. But then what he did was he had a look for who Jocko Willink was. Jocko Willink, Joe Rogan, BJJ. So then he looked at BJJ and he came down to your gym. And we didn't say anything, didn't know. And pretty soon, you know, he was coming to your gym 2-3 times a day. And then all of a sudden, you know, we're seeing this kid coming home. He didn't tell us what he was doing, but he was looking better. And, you know, then he said, oh, can I borrow some money because I want to buy a gi? I'm like, what? Yeah, I've been going to jiu-jitsu and I want to buy a gi. So I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, how much? And they told me, that's a lot of money. You know, you sure you're going to stay with this? Yeah. So gave him the money. And then I thought, I better go and check this out to make sure that, you know, it's legit and all the rest of it. So I came down and I watched the session and I didn't understand any of it. And then, you know, but I could see him changing and his enthusiasm for life coming back, him coming back to us. And I think I came and watched 2 or 3 sessions and watched him, and as a protective father, I was really nervous, and I'll get up and I'll separate them, you know, you can't hurt my son. But then, you know, I realized, no, just got to sit back. And then my son said, yeah, Dad, why don't you give it a go? And I said, oh, mate, I'm 50, I'm good, you know, I'm good. You know, it looks like a young man's sport. And then he pulled the guilt trip on me. He said, oh, hang on, let me get this right. And he would have been 21 at the time. He said, for the last 21 years, you've asked me not to do this, to do this, to do this, to live this way. And you've expected me to do that. And I ask you to do one class and you're saying no. Is that what I'm hearing? So he guilted me into it. So then I came and tried it, and it was like nothing I've ever experienced before in my life. And nothing. It was friends say, you know, what is it about jiu-jitsu? All you do is talk about jiu-jitsu. You know, do you have a life outside of jiu-jitsu? I said, it's just really for me, it's just really unusual. Like it's really hard to describe it. It's like if you're a musician, you turn up to class and the instructor gives you a chord, you know, like a chord. Here's a chord. But then, you know, after a couple of months, you might have 3 or 4 chords and you have to put them in some sort of logical sequence that's going to make sense to play the music. And you know, like it's a combative sport, but it's not. It's like chess, but it's not. And there's a certain, like, I was thinking about this on the way here. There's a certain camaraderie that you get that I've been to other jiu-jitsu gyms when I've been traveling because I love jiu-jitsu. And you're not sure of the people there or anything like that. And when you get onto the mats, you've got to be really humble. You know, you can't have an ego. And you'll get into situations where you can't do anything about it. You know, like you are extremely vulnerable, but you know that if you tap, that person, even if you've never met them before, will just stop. All the pressure will come off. And you'll look at each other in the eye and you'll shake hands and say, that was really cool. Can you show me what you did or how you got there? Or, you know, and I
The
thought,
complete stranger. Yeah.
yeah, complete. And to have that brotherhood or trust. And then you have girls that come here and, you know, like I'm 6'4" and 95 kilos. And, you know, you've been really careful with who you let roll with who. But in the last couple of years, I've been rolling with some of the girls. And it's just this mutual respect.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just nourishing for this. It's what we're supposed to do. You know, there's no other sport that you can be so vulnerable and feel so
Safe and protected.
and protected at the same time. It's incredible.
Boy, that's super interesting. Your description, your insights. I love that the way you put it out there. It's really interesting, Eddie.
It's a very well thought out kind of explanation. And I know it is such a difficult thing to describe because it's the like describing feeling and emotion and these untangible things that can be very difficult. But like I think you did a really good job kind of explaining that scenario for a lot of people. And you're right, like we talked about this, and I think the thing that I always go back to and it talks to about like it's like this grounding like basis root level of being a human being. And we talked about it with Octavio, and he explains it in a way where he's done a lot of research about this stuff. But like touch and feel and like wrestling and like the grappling aspect is the first like real language that you learn as a human being. Because when you're an infant, before you can speak, the way you communicate, you tug on your mum's arm, I want to go up, you do all this stuff. So it brings you back to that grounded root place where, man, you I don't know what it is, I don't know how to describe it as well. It's so hard to put into words, but it just brings you back to that childhood scenario, man, like where you can connect to things honestly. And there's no like manipulation involved. It's just like you experiencing everything without all the like societal pressures and social pressures of the world. Like it's just you just openly expressing, you know, I'm gonna try and beat you, you're gonna try and beat me, but it's this language and it's this art and it's it's a very complex, unique thing that like a lot of people never experience, which, you know, is a sad thing to go through life without experiencing that. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. Yeah.
The first 6 months, I think, is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's happening. You know, you have an ego, and it doesn't matter how big your ego is. No. You could have somebody that's half your size wrap you up, and you can't move. There's absolutely nothing you can do other than tap. You know, and then some people, me probably included back in the day, wouldn't tap, and you know, people are going, you should tap because there's no getting out of this. But you just keep coming back for the first 6 months. You know, you won't know what's happening. You don't get it, you know, and you get this fight or flight and this perceptual narrowing. And, you know, I watch when both of you are instructing, and to me, I'm listening and you're giving very clear, concise guidelines on what to do. As soon as the clap, half the class, it's out the window, and they're like, you know, and you're like, man, didn't you just hear what they said?
Yeah.
You know, hey, I want to roll with you, but let's practice what did he just say? We just had half an hour of drilling, and you know, all you've been thinking about is who's going to submit me, who am I going to submit, and it's just not the way it works, you know. And to me now, like I'm 5 years, I'm 55 now, 5 years deep, and it's almost like meditation. You know, when I come here, if I've had a hard day, if there's outside influences affecting me, when I go on the mats, all I can focus on is jiu-jitsu. I can't think about, I have to get the dog food on the way home, I have to pay this bill, I can't think of any of that. You know, I'm trying to think, oh, what did he teach me? How did I get out of this move last time? What did Anton teach me? So, you know, and that's really unique. So it sounds really weird for a combative sport.
Yeah.
But once, and I think it was you, Eduardo, that said to me, and it was probably around the 6 month mark, I said, you know, how do you know when you're getting better? And you said, can you remember your last roll? And I'm like, no. He says, that's because you're too emotional. You know, if you can detach, leave your emotions, leave your ego behind, then you'll start to see the bigger picture. And as soon as you said that, you know, like, yeah, you know, just relax. Instead of having this peripheral narrowing, this tunnel vision, you see the whole picture. And then for me now, like, jiu-jitsu is everywhere in life. You know, if I'm pushing something the wrong way, if it's too difficult, I step back, detach. Oh, there's an easier way. You know, don't push against the frame. Go around the frame. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels that you can apply to life. This is a really important one, though, because, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's always easy in theory, but the moment the clap happens and the intensity starts, or the moment you get into a heated argument with a loved one or whatever, like, it's really difficult not to, you know, like, get caught up in that emotional thing. Like, you know what I mean? And I compete all the time, and I still am affected by that. Like, it's an ongoing battle, you know what I mean? It's an ongoing process of improvement and getting better as a human being. And again, we've talked about this with a bunch of people. It's just like this, you're mimicking survival, man. Like this perpetual cycle of learning and improving. It's to get better, to improve. It's forever, you know, in front of you, and you can never catch the carrot dangling in front of you. But that's the purpose of living, man. That's what gives meaning to life. You know what I mean? Instead of like, oh, I've got my purple belt and now I'm done. Like, and like, man, there's more to achieve. There's more to get. There's more to go there. But yeah, this is a really important point that you talked about as well, about detaching. We all struggle with emotions, unfortunately, but it does help for sure doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you know, you start remembering your roles, and you're remembering where they put their hands, what you did, and you know, the next time that happens, you can recognize it. You know?
Look, for me, one of the most rewarding things I think is, like, after years teaching, is be able to touch people's life, you know, and I'm pretty sure we do this a lot. Sometimes people don't see that. Sometimes people go, man, I cannot come to me and have a conversation, tell, look, this really touched my life for many reasons. And that's what happened to you. I remember we had this conversation one day before, and you're so happy, and there's no hard to have words to describe on how amazing that would have been for yourself, to have someone so close to you to be able to overcome such a difficult time, right? I had many friends before that had the same situation, and sports, jiu-jitsu helped a lot as well, one of the sports that helped. There's a lot of people that use for other issues as well, and that brings a lot of balance. I think that the balance, the jiu-jitsu, the little discipline, the little, for example, I think everyone that's from my age in Brazil, like, would have the option to go the wrong path, probably more than once. It's present with you every day, right? very common. You play soccer, even in jiu-jitsu mat. You have. I used to play. I used to say this as a joke, but this is true. At the same gym, the same floor training, you have the big drug dealer and the police, and they shake hands afterwards. You know what I mean? When they training, right? But you had an option. You could go to anyway. And when you're a teenager, you literally can go anyway, right? Because you're trying or because some people are telling you it's fun, etc. And I always found jiu-jitsu was very important in my personal life because it brought me back to, oh, wait a second. I cannot keep drinking too much because tomorrow I want to train. But just having that balance, like there's consequences. So from a young age, like in like having the sport background gives you that. Oh, wait a second. I can't just go and party for 3 days and do whatever I want. No. Next day, otherwise I'll cry. I remember one day.
When you get bashed or you can't
I remember,
train,
this is true story. I used to do a competition training back at Alliance on a Saturday, the headquarters in Alliance, and it was a Saturday morning. And I party on a Friday. Like, this was a vivid lesson in my head. I learned that one. And the train was early morning, and it was like, before it used to be like 10 trains, 10 minutes, no water. It was like very
old school,
a bit crazy, not acceptable nowadays. But anyway, that time was like that. And so I think there was like the third or fourth train. I was like in just hardcore training. I started crying. I was like, man, talking to myself, crying on my own, just going, I can't do that. That's wrong, man. I can't. Or I party, or I do the training. I can't do. So that always brought me balance. And I think I wanted to hear from you. Why do you think that was important specifically for him? What did you observe that actually affected him? I do remember when he arrived, and I could see that his personality changed so much. He got involved in jiu-jitsu because he was a musician, so he already had the artistic hand and background, creativity. So he could put a lot of thought into this. So I thought him immerse himself into that, and that was probably what like make him thinking so much and got involved. And he actually got really good at jiu-jitsu, which was really amazing as well and awesome to see. And his personality changed. He became a lot more giving, a lot more open, a lot more humble is the word. Perfect. So
yeah,
please.
So, my wife and I talk and we say we owe Eduardo our son's life. I believe that jiu-jitsu came along at the right time to turn a corner. So we'll always be indebted for that. What it brought, when people are using drugs, who do they associate with?
Other people that do that stuff.
Okay, and people want to bring them back down.
To justify their own behavior.
And look, like I talked to Zeke before I came here and asked if it was okay to mention some of this, and he said it was. I remember, he was doing jiu-jitsu. He hadn't used drugs. It was probably about 6 months of really hard times for my wife and I to try and get through this. We're coming down off substances. It was terrible. But after 6 months, things seemed to settle down. And we went away for the weekend. And my daughter came home from university, and she came home and she called us. She said, do you realize there's somebody staying at our house with my son? And I was like, no. And, so we rushed back and this guy had gone. And our son was acting bad, like weird. And my wife and I talked and we said, look, he's probably used, we've just got to reset, refocus, move ahead, And for 3 days he acted weird. And then on the third day, I still remember it was a Sunday, he came out and he was normal. And he said to his mother, he said, that fellow that was here, he bought drugs. And the whole time he was here, he kept offering me drugs. And I kept saying, no, I'm off them. I don't want to do drugs anymore. And he would use them while he was here. And then when you were coming back, he left and he shook my hand. And as he shook my hand, he put drugs in my hand. He said, you keep these in case you need them. And he said, for 3 days, my demons in my head were saying, oh, you know, they're there. And he said, this morning I flushed them down the toilet. And we saw it straight away. You know? So
the relief.
That was awesome. So you've got, excuse the French, but you've got shit bags that want to bring you down all the time. Like that guy. You know, that's a kid saying, hey, I don't want to do it anymore. And this is a guy going, I don't want you to succeed. Zeke's coming to jiu-jitsu. He's associating with adults, males, his own age group. None of them are using drugs. He's achieving kicking goals. He's getting stripes. He's getting maneuvers.
Getting better. Yeah.
And he's associating with people that don't do that. And you know, all of a sudden he had a new group of friends.
New influence.
New influence.
Different ages as well.
Yep, different great role models. And, you know, that was the big change, like a big turning point for us. So it's been 6 years. He's been drug-free 6 years.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. Look, I think it's very important to, first of all, for me, it's just, for me, it gives for me, super important. It just gives me it's a gift for me, like to be able to touch people's life. That's what I think it's a lot, gives the most important present I have of teaching jiu-jitsu is be able to touch people's life. That for me is more than any money, right? To be honest, that's what keeps me doing that. I had the option to do other jobs, but I decided to do jiu-jitsu, and I look for a reason why to do jiu-jitsu, you know, like why to teach jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? And when I discovered that was like I was touching people's lives, and I receive a lot of feedbacks in that to reinforce that, which is pretty awesome for me, because the same way he touches you, he touched me. That was, for me, it was like, well, this is, I'm happy, you know what I mean? I'm settled. This is what I'm going to be doing. I feel satisfied. So for me, it's a pleasure, an honor to be doing this. And I'm pretty sure I did that to myself as well. So it worked for me, right? I had a situation where I got drugs as well from friends, and I flushed. I think flushed has a very good connotation in like, don't want this shit. This shit is not like, you know, people gave me drugs, you know, friends, you know, drug dealers. Hey man, have these, go. Oh, this is awesome. You go, oh, man, I think this is shit. Boom. And then flush, I think is a good symbolic moment, you know? Yeah, look, I couldn't be happier. I know there's a lot of people that have a lot of struggles, you know, with different drugs and different state of mind as well.
Yeah.
And I think jiu-jitsu can be very helpful, like just to give you, like you're saying, you're gonna be surrounded by people that have different ages, good people, great people, good values. There is a discipline that's involved that it drives you into something much nicer. You know what I mean? That can give you a lot back to you, more than you think. Actually, that's the funny thing. Yeah. So I feel privileged as well, Eddy.
Yeah.
It
Man, thank you so much for sharing that. Like, I think this is the type of stuff that's important to talk about for people to realize and understand the value of these types of things. Like, and I think you're both kind of talking about it. You're talking about like the responsibility that like it teaches you responsibility, it teaches you accountability. But I think what people really start to realize and start to notice is you have power over your own life, man. Like, a lot of people don't get that. Like, we're taught almost in a Western country to like remove accountability from yourself, and it's like, oh, because this happened to me, and oh, these things are the reason for that, and it's almost like you're encouraged to like take that victimized kind of mindset. And when you start doing this and you're around people that are like, another thing on top of that is they're all respectful towards each other, regardless of their demographic, regardless where they're from, because you both have to trust each other to that extent where complete stranger that you go and train with in another country is willing to let go of whatever you're doing to them because you're tapped on their body. So that trust level and that respect level, but not only on top of that, is that you gain all the power. You're in control of the outcomes and the things that happen to you and the things that happen around you and the things that you do to other people. You're in control. It's not the drug, it's not the people, it's not your mommy, it's not your daddy, it's not the government, it's you. And this is something that kind of gets thrown in your face over and over and over when you do jiu-jitsu. Like you said, you started crying in the middle of this training because you couldn't keep up with that and you just can't do it anymore. and you recognize that it's your responsibility, that you have to be accountable for those choices. You're in control. And this is the type of thing that I think you guys are kind of like talking about underlying.
Yeah.
And again, like anybody that has the opportunity to go and do jiu-jitsu and kind of commit their life to the mastery of this crazy, intricate, you know what I mean, artsy, weird sport, like, man, you're going to learn this stuff to some extent. I mean, it's good for everybody.
What's interesting is that a lot of people, you know, over the last 5 years, I've met a lot of people that have suffered abuse that come to jiu-jitsu, or that, you know, women that have been sexually violated, and they come and do jiu-jitsu. And I thought, this is crazy. You know, like, why would you want to do that? But what jiu-jitsu does, which I've only come to realize just recently, is that if somebody was assaulted, they were held down. So in their mind, in their nerves, everything, they've got this negative trigger for being held down. You come and you do jiu-jitsu, all of a sudden you're being held down in exactly the same, it doesn't make sense. You're being held down in exactly the same thing. You tap, it's released. It's not the terrible outcome that, you know. So yeah, I couldn't get over it at first. You know, why would women that have been sexually violated want to come to jiu-jitsu? And it's a reconditioning that, hey, there are decent people in the world.
Positive reconditioning.
That's right. You know, it's just an amazing thing.
Super interesting. Eddy, so what would you say it's your like, how many times a week do you train? You know, there's a lot of guys. I noticed there's a lot more guys over 35, over 40, over 45 training at the gym and training jiu-jitsu, because it can be done as a form of like a lifestyle thing and enjoyable. No one kicks, no one punches, you know, like a chess game. For your life, what works well for you in terms of like how many times a week do you train? Do you try to do other sports with it? Do you do anything else aside from jiu-jitsu?
Sure. Look, I'd love to do jiu-jitsu 3 times a day, you know, 7 days a week. I think once I did every class in the week, but that was probably 3 years ago. Now I like to try to come 3 to 4 times a week. At my age, if I don't come, I get very stiff and very sore. So it's active recovery for me.
The maintenance.
Yeah. And look, I think that I'm pretty careful who I roll with. You know, I understand that I'm not a spring chicken. And
what?
I often joke with the younger ones, and I say, look, there's no winning for you. You know, like if you submit me, you've just submitted a 55-year-old.
Elder abuse.
But if I submit you, you've just been submitted by a 50. So it's no win situation for you. But so we have fun. But you know, like so yeah, 3 to 4 times a week. I pick who I roll with. I try to stay active. You know, I do run, but I found that I had to give my running away because I was getting too tight and it was prohibiting me from being loose for jiu-jitsu. So I still run a little bit, like 3 or 4 times a week, but not as much as I used to.
And it's important as well to have like 3 or 4, for me, works really well nowadays as well. You know, I'm about to turn 46. But I think choosing partners is essential. But there's one more thing as well, which you mentioned right at the beginning. It's don't fight with your ego, you know what I mean, to try not tap for anything, because to recover for anything, it takes a lot more time. There is no point.
As you get older,
we'll lose all the fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not here to prove anything to no one. We're just having a great time and put the radio on the way back home nice and listen to good music. We were done, yeah?
Yeah, it's funny because I came last night and I was speaking to one of my colleagues in the car park after the class, and you know, he said, I had a really shitty day and I didn't want to come, but I came, and he said, I feel good now.
Glad I came.
Yeah, glad I came.
You know, have you ever tried to think about when you have a great day in jiu-jitsu, like in training, that everything works, all the positions you want to try and every moves, you have perfect timing. And I found funny, but there's some days where I had completely shit days, right? And I come to them and I'm tired and everything, and I come to them, everything works great.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh my God, how I'm going to now put that into the my judgment thing about when is the right time, when I do well or not, you know what
It's
I mean?
a paradox.
It's supposed to be a bad day on the mat as well, and it became a great day.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're well rested, you're waiting for the moment, nothing works, you know?
I think it's the relaxation in the whole thing. Like when you go there and you're kind of like indifferent, you just let things happen as they happen naturally. And like when you go there and you're like driven and ready to go, you kind of your expectations are high, but also you try to create that instead of allowing it to happen on its own. It's a funny like paradox, man. Man, you're gonna find this paradoxical thinking, and man, like every class, for example, paradoxical stuff. Every class, there's always a question: is like, which one is better? Is it better to do it this way, or is it better to do it that way? And like every day, I'm like, dude, you guys have to change the way you think about things. It doesn't exist. There is no magic pill. There is no special technique. There is no special workout plan. It's like if you do it this way, you gain this and you lose that. If you do it this way, you gain this and you lose that. And it's just a matter of choice.
It was really funny as a white belt because, the first year we were all kind of like, Eduardo taught us this technique. This is the trump technique. This is going to trump every other technique on the planet. Now we're good to go. We don't have to learn anything else because he taught us this arm bar or this choke, and we're good to go now. This is going to... And then you realize, oh, hang on. No, it doesn't work all the time. In fact, it hardly works on me at all.
Yeah, it's funny how we get taught sometimes one thing and we're not open to add other points from other people, you know, like this is one thing that it's very important in jiu-jitsu as well. Like you be open to see other ways to do the things, because even if you go to 5 different gyms, like with great teachers, you're going to see different details perhaps that are valid, you know, but, so you should try to take in consideration at least, you know what I mean? And see if it works for you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like the way that here at Gaha, over the last 2 years, we've been more, hey, think of the fundamental. What is your objective here? It's not, hey, nail this technique. You're teaching the techniques, but hey, what is your objective here? My objective is to get past. Okay, there's 30 ways of getting past the hips, 500 ways of getting past the hips. Get past the hips, but when you get past them, secure them. Now, what have you got to do? Oh, you got the shoulders. You got to try and secure the shoulder. So it's that conceptual thing rather than this technique is going to see you.
Page 34, paragraph 2. That's now this time. I agree.
Yeah, I kind of transition a lot. So teaching most of the class and that type of thing, I transition a lot from, because that's how I got taught jiu-jitsu as well. Like I didn't really start thinking about jiu-jitsu so deeply except for the last like 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's a new thing. I think there's always been guys been teaching that way, and like people that are really immersed and really driven and like deep thinkers, they've always been like this. And some people did it in philosophy and some people did it in, inventions. And I think it's become more common now in jiu-jitsu. And you're just trying to streamline and like maximize efficiency with whatever you're doing, because you can teach somebody all the techniques in the world and still, because they don't understand what they're trying to do, they still fail. And it's like, all right, the whole like fisherman teaching him how to fish instead of giving him the fish. Like, man, teach the guy how to fish and you can feed him for a lifetime. So if you explain to people how things work, they don't need to come to you every time there's a problem. They should be able to think about it on their own to come up with solutions. And that's the goal of everybody as a coach. You're trying to make your students better than you. That's what the goal is. Whether they get to that point's up to their work and up to their, discipline and all that type of thing. But like that's the goal, you know what I mean? So
I made it, yeah.
we laugh, like me and my buddies, we laugh because, we used to go up to either one of you and say, oh, how do I get out of this arm bar, or how do I get out of this triangle, and you would look at us, either Eduardo or Anton, and you go, just don't get there in the first place.
There's so many memes about this type of response. Like, there's so many memes and funny jokes about this response.
You made the mistake 3 moves or 4 moves ago. Once you're there, just tap and move on.
But they're talking about like the most extreme example. Like, my arm's fully locked out. There's no bend in my arm at all. I'm about to break my elbow. All right, what do I do? It's like, man, like
tap.
Yeah, that's probably the only way you're going to get out of there. Yeah. Funny.
The other thing that I just really wanted to, that I think about a lot. So in Australia, we have this culture of, hey, if you're big and strong, you're a cool male.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, if you play rugby, if you do all this stuff, you're cool. But jiu-jitsu, every body type has its advantages and disadvantages. So what I've seen since I've started is I've seen guys that in that, if you're not 6 foot whatever and cut, if you're 5'6" and little, that you might not have been any good on the rugby field or anything like that, there's a spot for you in jiu-jitsu because you can move a lot faster than the 6'4" guy.
Yep.
And for me, it's so humbling to have a guy that's 5'5" submit me because my disadvantages, I'm old, my legs, I've got heaps of space, so he's fast, he moves around. And you watch how good it is for them, their sense of pride that, hey, Australia values these warriors, and here I am, a warrior, because I know my game and I know how my game works. My game's a fast game, that's really cool.
And that's another intricate about the jiu-jitsu game that I found so interesting. Like, you're not only trying to develop your game and develop techniques and understand concepts so your game can go through the roof, but you also having the importance of analyzing the other people's game that are close to you as well, or someone that you're going to compete with, because depending the body shape and the positions that the guy does, like, you're going to have to bring your different game to face that person, you know what I mean? Just so strategic at the same time, you know what I mean? You can train starting that person from bottom half and you can do really well, and then you let the person put you in close guard to start and do really bad, So, and a lot of people don't go to that extent when they don't think about this, the next level, to observe when the guy training, that there's normally a very similar pattern or what the guy is good at. So I'm not going to get in there. If I get there, what I do. I think this is a lot of thinking to be done, which is super, super amazing.
Yeah, I think it's good to note that, like, every body type's going to have, like, again, like I said before, there's no good one and no, this one's better than this. Like, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses and stuff. I would say that, like, that, like, demographic or individual, that archetype of person you're talking about, like the big, strong, athletic male type thing, I think that's always been, like, the desired male physique. So I don't think it's exclusive to Australia. I think that's always been the way it is since the beginning of time. Now, I think historically that meant, like, a powerful guy that was a leader and, like, the chieftain of a tribe or whatever. But you can absolutely overcome that with technique. And that's why I would say, like, for a lot of more power sports like rugby or athletic pursuit-based sports, there's skill involved in it, of course, but it still focuses more on the athleticism. Whereas jiu-jitsu, you can supersede athleticism with technique and understanding. And that's the cool thing about, again, empowering an individual. This is real empowerment, not the manifestation bullshit and the woke crap that everyone talks about now with empowerment. Like, giving people power in their own life to, like, if you do understand well enough and if you rehearse the movements well enough, you can submit somebody way bigger than you. Holy shit. Jiu-jitsu works. There's reason behind this. And that, I think that's what you're kind of touching on, and that is really cool, and that is really powerful, and that is really confidence building. Like, man, you can give somebody control in their life if they work hard and they do the things they need to. If they understand and they work hard and rehearse and improve themselves, they can defend and do this. And like he's saying, yeah, there's always commonalities in body types and things. You can analyze everything and you can predict things based off that. Guys that are smaller or more flexible are generally going to be better in this situation. And guys that are really long and lanky and have this, they're going to be better in these scenarios. And a guy that's really thick and stocky and powerful, they're going to be better here and here. And yeah, sometimes it's just getting to a position where it favors you and it doesn't favor them, and that's what's going to lead to success or winning or whatever.
It's really quite funny because there's always that debate, isn't there, about, you know, does technique win out over, you know,
To some point, to some extent. Yeah.
And I do remember probably 2 years ago, it was a class, and there was a guy turned up, and he was, as you said, the ultimate athlete. He was pumped. He was 6'4". He was solid, and he rolled with one of the smaller guys within the club. And, you know, the roll, everyone's rolling. It was kind of roll time, and the roll kept going. And pretty much everyone on the mat stopped and watched this pair roll, because it was the question of, you know, here's David and Goliath. It was a true David and Goliath on the mats. And the guy that was new, did everything, you know, muscles, and he was bench pressing the little jiu-jitsu guy off him, like throwing him through the air, and he'd fall and he'd come back, and, you know, just pure physical, and the whole gym was stopping and watching, and next thing, the smaller guy's on top again, and he bench pressed him and he threw him in the air, and as he's in the air, he grabbed his arm, did an arm bar on the way down. Next thing, the guy's tapping, you know, and we're like, oh, technique does work, you know. It was like David and Goliath. Never saw that guy, never came back again.
See, that's the problem I was going to mention. I see that happen many times.
Handle it, you
yes,
know,
with extremely like guys with amazing physique that are used to do weights at the gym and look at themselves in the mirror. That can be too much for the ego. That's a bash on the ego that they cannot come out. Sometimes, of course, people stay, but I've seen happen as well.
That happens in every situation. That's just somebody that has like a high level of immaturity as an adult. Like, they've never had to adjust their stuff like you had to when you got too tired from drinking and stuff like that, because they've always gotten by with their stuff. And you can use other parallels. A real pretty girl, she's never been told no or never been told off. The moment that happens for the first time, it's going to be a catastrophic situation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like when you don't experience hardship or you don't put yourself in challenging situations, you don't grow as an individual.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing about jiu-jitsu is you're constantly forced into those scenarios. In other situations in life, it's actually very safe. You can always avoid these challenging situations as much as possible. But when you do jiu-jitsu, unfortunately, there's nowhere to hide. There's mat space, and you and someone else in front of you. Where are you going to go?
And it's very similar to life, because you have the ups and downs. Like, you're going to get a new job or you're going to get fired. You're going to get a new girlfriend. You're going to break up your marriage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's all the same. Family's going to die. Someone's going to be born. You know?
Yeah.
So happiness, you know, getting sad all the time. Jiu-jitsu, up and down, every day.
Success, failure, 100%, man.
Yeah.
It's a condensed version of life, man. I probably said this 28 times on the 28 podcasts we've done. Every podcast, man. It's a condensed version of life, and that's why it's so addictive, man.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is some people get more out of this than they do living actual life, because in life, again, you can avoid all of these challenges. You can avoid all this stuff. You can't do it in jiu-jitsu. If you're training and you're training for real, you can't avoid it, man.
Do you have any traits, that personality traits that you developed through jiu-jitsu? I have one very classic now. I can spot it on myself. Do you have any?
Well, I think that my temper is a lot calmer than it has been. I think that I'm more humble than I ever have been. I recognize in life when my ego is telling me to do things, which is probably not the right thing to do. So I'm able to check that, which I don't think I've ever been able to do, you know, quite emotional and things like that. My awareness of what's happening around me all the time is a lot better than it used to be.
It's very interesting.
You know, I was with some friends, I remember at Byron Bay, and you know, I saw an altercation. And, you know, we just walked past it. And I said to my friends, did you see that? And they said, no. You know, and so you're aware of things.
What do you think is that? Because you suddenly watching so many like body movements when we're training, or because I agree with you on that 100%.
You're watching people's expressions. You're watching
Body language.
their body language. You know,
Yeah.
you just get. I think you get.
I think you get more intelligent emotionally because you learn how to deal with your own emotions better.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like you're forced to deal with uncomfortable situations, and as a byproduct of that, you get better at dealing with uncomfort or anxiety or aggression or happiness or sadness or all of the things that you experience with going through hardship. And man, I'm a big believer in like you're never gonna grow as an individual if you do not go through hard things in life. You can't grow without challenge. You can't grow without accepting responsibility and being put in situations that's difficult. So like you need to either find hardship, or if you're like one of the unfortunate or fortunate people that experience real hardship in the world, you know, people dying and having to look after your family and getting a job at 16 and looking after people and helping with this and helping with that, and you know, having major injuries and overcoming problems and, you know, this family problem and this and that. Like, you become a more complete individual because as you go through these things, you learn about the world, you learn about life. And you know what the crazy thing is again, you learn this stuff in jiu-jitsu. And this is what's missing for a lot of people from the world. So I feel like you can notice fights and stuff better, and you feel you're better at dealing with things. Of course, we're not perfect. I'll still get angry with somebody if they disrespect me constantly. I might erupt and get angry and yell. I'm a human being, right? But for the most part, you get better at like managing all these things in your mind. You start to control your mind as opposed to your mind controlling you. You start to control your reactions as opposed to your emotions controlling how you react. And that's something that I think is really important for people to work on in life. Because otherwise we're just reacting, you know what I mean? You're not analyzing anything. You're not processing how things feel or how things are. You just react. And it's like a normal conversation. For the most part, when you're upset with somebody or someone says something that upsets you, we react in the way we feel. What I have started to notice is even though that I feel that way, I'm still now able to respond in a way that I would like to respond. And again, that if I choose to be aggressive and yell, I'm aware of that still. Maybe that's the wrong choice, maybe not. If I choose to be calm and you know, slow with how I talk or whatever, I'm more conscious of that now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that really starts to, you kind of gain this stuff as you do jiu-jitsu more, or as you go through hardship more.
That's your trace of personality that you're building up.
I would say a little bit, but I'm just saying overall, I think you learn how to deal with your emotions better because you're putting yourself in hard situations, and as you deal with hard situations, you get better at dealing with the emotions that are brought up inside of you.
But you have one specific for you?
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't say specific. That's the specific one, is like being more aware and more conscious of how you react, how your emotions are doing inside of your body, what's actually happening, and separating and detaching from how you feel as opposed to how you act. Because I don't think that's something that is very common in the world, and I also don't think that that's that easy to learn. Because again, you learn it through hard shit.
That's right. And you know, look, if you're going to look at the way society's, you know, you said woke and you know, like we try to take hardship or disappointment away from our loved ones, our friends. You know, I don't want them to suffer, but you know, there's valuable lessons
in all of that. Yeah, for sure. And that's the paradox. You know what I mean? Like, you do it out of love, but a lot of the time it hurts them more because they don't learn how to be self-sufficient. They don't learn how to be in control of their own life. Yeah.
What was your...
My personal one is this: anything that I do that doesn't work or as much as I would like to, or I think I can do better, I want to do it again. I want to regroup, get all the information again, go through it again, study, reevaluate, and I just want to give another opportunity to do it again.
So how do you do that? Like, so you're saying if somebody passed your guard, submitted you in jiu-jitsu...
No, I'm talking about life. Well,
yeah, that's jiu-jitsu.
But yes, back in jiu-jitsu, yes, if someone passed my guard and done something, I'm going to look, okay, well, I could perhaps do another way to defend that, or I was too slow to start moving, you know, like I will review, and I wanted to, when I'm back in that situation, I'm going to try again. Do you know what I mean? But that could be from something that I cooked that I overcooked, I want to do it again, or a deal that I did and that I didn't go too well, and I want to do it again.
It's made you more driven in addressing flaws or mistakes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But isn't that the cool thing about jiu-jitsu too? That if somebody does do something to you, I've never had, if I go up, how did you do that? Like, what did you do to get there? No one's ever said, I'm not telling you. That's my secret. Like, they're always happy to share. And so by sharing, you get better.
But they get better too.
Yeah.
And then that makes you better.
Yeah.
Because by sharing, you know what they're going to do that time, what they do well, and then you're going to avoid that, and then you're going to have to, you oblige them to get better as well.
So this is another life lesson too, but that's just like abundance. Like, you're just sharing and being bountiful with everything, like whether it's knowledge, whether it's resources, whether it's attention and help and and your time, whatever. Like, the more like abundant you are with that, the more you share that, the more people are willing to share it with you. And what that does is just breed a group of people that are willing to keep lifting each other up. And as you lift someone else up, they're happy to lift you up, and everyone improves as an individual.
Yeah.
But by helping each other, you can't improve by yourself. You improve by or a bunch of individuals all helping each other improve. And I think, again, this is another thing that's missing from everyday life. Like, for the most part, in the corporate world, in business,
you're trying to
step on people to get up there. And the thing is like, you might get to those positions, but you fucking ruin every single relationship, situation that you're ever going to be in to get to that position.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of people bring that into their family life and their relationships or whatever. Like, you shouldn't be burning bridges with everyone because they upset you or they did this or they did that. Like, oh no, they're lower than me now because I'm up here. Like, that's not a good way to live, man. But
Eddy,
people do what they do, man.
Like myself as well, I think our memory started to be not as so fresh that we can remember everything, like, and sometimes, 3 techniques you get in a car, oh my God, I hardly remember 2. And we work it out. We always try to get better, that same personality traits we were talking about. Even at the gym, jiu-jitsu, we always like running the gym. We always think about what can we do to make people learn more, to make our job better on what we're delivering. And that's how the idea of BJJ101 was born initially. Anton has an amazing knowledge of coming with conceptuals that makes super easy to understand all the positions basic. And that's how BJJ101 was born. And now we use Agarra here on our programs, and the online library is there. The platform is there for anyone that wanted to be part of it. So, and use it. You being part of BJJ101, you being a member of BJJ101, you're using the online library. Can you tell us how beneficial that is for you, please?
Sure, yeah. I do, like, I'll remember the techniques that we're doing this month, but in 3 months' time, it will be a challenge for me. And before BJJ101, I used to say to Anton, at the end of each month, can we have a refresher from 2 months ago?
Yeah.
Like, not this month, but 2 months ago, because I've forgotten how to get out of this side control or whatever. I think it'd be really beneficial. And then he started putting together this program. And for me, what it is, there's lots of stuff online. You're talking about it. You see people, they
Endless.
YouTube some,
Name anybody. Yeah.
funky submission, and you'll see them trying, and you go, what the hell's that? But for me, BJJ101 aligns with what we're learning here at Gaha. So if I can't remember, and I did it the other day where, I was having a mental blank about escaping a position, and for the life of me, I couldn't remember. And then I went on to BJJ101. I looked it up. There it was. You only needed to just get that. And then I came to class that night, and, I've got a lot of good buddies here, and I just, at the start of the roll, I said, hey, listen, I just want to refresh on this. Can we just put off rolling for a second and we just refresh? No worries. So, that to me is good, because it synchronizes with what we're learning here at Gaha, where every other platform out there, that's their techniques or whatever, probably all get to the same thing. But for me, it's Anton, it's Lucas,
same
it's
language.
Tim, it's all
Same
the same,
language, yes.
same language, same techniques.
Same voice even.
yeah. You know, so
100%.
to me, it's been really beneficial. Have I got better? I don't know, but
Takes
at
time,
least at least I have a resource to go and check it out, and I find that's invaluable.
Yeah, the thing that I tried to do, like for the most part, is just try and simplify the ideas, man. Because I think there's hundreds of guys on the internet. There's guys with way more accolades than me that are like, 10 times world champions, all this stuff. And the thing that I've noticed and that I've actually heard from most people, and I've had a lot of compliments from the seminars that I teach and the videos that I make, whatever. But all these guys are teaching the techniques as if they're talking to like another high level black belt. Do you know what I'm saying? So, they're not catering to the biggest portion of human beings that actually do jiu-jitsu, which is like people that are just starting out. For the most part, like the details you're going to give to this like high level black belt, they're not like, they're little intricacies and they're little changes. But no, I want people to get the picture, the big picture. Remember we talked about that? The 0 to 6 months, 0 to 5, like 3 years. Like, what's the goal? What's the big picture? And again, the whole goal is to create like a platform where people can find the most concise goals of what you're actually trying to do when you roll. Because I remember being a beginner, I remember going there, slapping and bumping, and be like, oh, and then like, oh, there's an armbar, and doing some crazy shit to try and get an armbar. But I didn't know what the goal was. I wish someone taught me what the goal was when I started jiu-jitsu. So that's kind of the thing that I've tried to do, is like talk about everything and put it in a way that is so systemized and so simple that you just follow the steps. You just follow the understanding, and you seem to have results.
Yeah. And the other thing that I get out of it is, as we progress, we might see the same technique or the same, we're working on back takes every year. And, I often joke with you. I say, well, why didn't you tell me that little movement 5 years ago? I wouldn't. And he says, but I did. So our ability to remember, it's where we're at in our journey.
Yeah.
So I wasn't up to getting that little intricacy 5 years ago. I wasn't, but now it makes sense. And we joke all the time, I see when people, like sometimes they'll just turn up for the rolls. And I think you're missing so much, because there's that little intricacy that you might have already, you develop a bad habit that you can correct in the training part, rather than in the roles of the class.
For sure.
And and then if you're not sure, you can go home and you can look on BJJ101 and make sure that you're getting those sequences.
And when you think about it, Eddie, even when I was young, like there's so many positions, and there's so many details in each position that it's nearly impossible to remember. Like it is impossible to remember everything, but sometimes it's like even 50% you can't remember.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're gonna be phases that you're really good at doing omoplata, and then suddenly you start exploring other things.
Yeah,
you don't remember the intricates, the final details that are actually gonna make it or break it, the omoplata. And what I like about that program is it allows you to go there and look for like specific areas. So if you need to improve in a certain area, you're gonna go there, I want to get better at a bottom half guard. You go bottom half guard, and then you're gonna have a variety of positions, variety of details. So it's very narrowed down. If I want to improve this, or I want to check that detail, you can go straight to the point and can make it much easier for you to absorb that and come back to training. Of course, it's a tool to help you.
You still got to do the work. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you can't learn to swim without getting wet, right?
Yeah.
So you have to come on the mat, you have to train. Obviously, then you get all the intricates and come and try to apply. You know what I mean? And this is going to be a lot of fun to make that happen.
And that's one of the things that I'm learning as I go along in my journey. I remember speaking to Monsuk, and I said, what is your goal when you roll? And he said, well, when I roll, I want to practice one thing that I've learned this week in my roll. I want to incorporate it in my roll. And I thought, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like everyone's just going to,
skill-based approach. Yeah, he's working on skills in live training.
Yeah. And I thought, so when he talked, that was big for me. And I said, look, that's where I'd like to work.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I think it's funny, man. Like you always do this every week, is where it's like, oh, what's the gem for this week?
Yeah,
what are you
yeah.
gonna release? And I think it's funny, like every
But
year.
you do tell us a thing that you
couldn't comprehend.
couldn't
Yeah,
comprehend
yeah.
years ago.
That's the point. Like as you increase your understanding and knowledge, you're now open to more information. And like, unfortunately, and my brother actually gave me this analogy, and he's like, all right, you have to understand it like this. Like, all right, everybody that you're teaching's on page 3. You're on page 1572. So how you're trying to bridge that information to somebody here is really difficult, because you can't force somebody to catch up 1,500 pages. So coaching's difficult, man. Like you need to somehow get your knowledge and talk it down into a way that it can be received by somebody that's at this point. That's not an easy task, right? So yeah, that's like the whole reason behind BJJ101, but like that's just the whole reason behind like why it takes 3 years for you to get stuff that I was talking about a year and a half ago, or 3 years ago, or every year you learn another new detail about the same techniques or the same positions or the same concepts, because as you're catching up, all of it's starting to become clear to you. You know what I mean? And you're becoming conscious of all these other details and ideas and stuff. Yeah.
The best player doesn't make the best coach. You know, like
Yeah,
we see that over and over. You know, I remember the Brisbane Lions when they were winning all their premierships, and then they made Michael Voss coach, and he's like, "Well, you just do it this way," and everyone's like, "Huh? I don't get it," you know, because he was natural at it. He didn't have that ability to bridge the gap, to bring everyone up to his level. You know, so
yeah, that's definitely true. Guys that are naturals at thing, they don't have to work as hard, so they don't actually understand as well.
Yeah,
for sure.
In soccer, for example, all the guys that work at the defense, a lot of the guys, like famous coaches, they work at the defense, and they become very famous coaches, you know, and they say that because they're watching the game, you know what I mean, all the time. You know, kind of funny.
It's interesting, man. But I thought that was an interesting point to kind of like note. It definitely takes a lot of time to get to it. And this is not, again, this is another parallel with life. Like, as you grow and as you understand more about life, you comprehend things and you understand better, and you become more humble and you become more open and you become more understanding. But it takes time, man. And it takes hardship and challenge and responsibility and all the things that force you to grow and understand more and be better, to like, again, to be able to comprehend new things and new understandings, and whether that's in relationships, in business, in jiu-jitsu, and just getting along with people.
It does take time, but this is the other magical thing about jiu-jitsu, is that it never seems like a chore. You know, I have to drive 45 minutes to an hour to come to class each way, and not once has it ever felt like a chore. You know, and 5 years, where did that go? Like, I've enjoyed the journey. It's not like someone's, and as you said, the journey's, I can't see it finishing, you know, because you're always learning. You're always learning new things, you know.
That's what I think is fascinating, and that keeps me my drive. Man, then suddenly there's a new God. Suddenly there's a new way to do something. That's magical for someone that's been doing for long. It's because a lot of things when you do for long, you like get stale because there's nothing else to go here. You know.
Oh no, you'll never run out of new stuff.
The jiu-jitsu is created every night, basically. You know.
You'll never run out.
Or you see a detail every day.
A lot of
here I am yesterday trying to do what's the name? I don't even know the name of the guy. Worm God or half worm and half bacteria God. You know, like
bacteria God.
we were talking like when we were new white belts, and you know, most of the cohort that started with me is still coming. A lot of them, you know, like there's good camaraderie. And you know, we went, there must be something to this jiu-jitsu, because if Eduardo's been doing it for 32 years or however long you'd been doing it at that time, and someone said, yeah, did you ever see him? Do you ever watch him? Like, we're on the mats rolling and he'll be at the counter and he'll start pacing, and, you know, he'll get all antsy, and then next thing he'll go and grab a gi and he'll put it on, and then when he comes onto the mat, he has this big smile, like, you know, I know I should look at my computer, I'm going to roll, you know. We go, there must be something to this. If you can have that longevity and still be excited about coming onto the mats, there's something to this sport.
I've seen with guys 80 years old doing exactly the same thing, you know what I mean? Coming and screaming with one, hey, pass his guard, I don't know, excited, put his gi, come in, you know? Yeah.
I think it comes back to that thing that Octavio talked about, man. You're reverting to play, and actually Paul White talked about this as well. And he has a long history in psychology and psycho work and stuff like that. But like, man, you're reverting back to a child. You're being playful again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't play often. We're always working and being serious and being adults and doing all this stuff and not having fun and being creative. Now you get to go and be a kid again, running around on the playground, running around the field, kicking balls around, whatever. You do the same thing here. This is like the most primal fun thing. Every single tribal nationality that exists on the planet, what do you think happens when you get a bunch of guys together? They're all having fun, whoop-de-hooing, it's raining, it's muddy, who cares? The sun's out, super hot. What do they start doing? They start wrestling. Yeah. All of them. Because it's reverting back to your most primal, instinctual, like, communication, fun, camaraderie, brotherhood, you know what I mean? Like, we're all together, ha ha ha, but we're masculine and strong, da da da. Like, and for guys, it's even more important. Because there's not many spaces left where you can be like that.
No, not at all. And with COVID, it's been a lifesaver for COVID, I reckon, because, what did the government make us do with COVID? Wear masks, stay isolated, stay separated from people, everyone.
Yeah.
And we
Your
would
own family,
I'd talk to my colleagues here, and we're like, oh, it's so good to come to jiu-jitsu and embrace people and sweat on people and laugh and see people's faces. It's just awesome,
100%. 100%.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's so good now not having to have the mask and be able to see everyone's facial expressions and roll without having to not sit close by when you're outside and all that. It's already a blessing.
Yeah, Eddie was here when we were doing the no contact drill classes, playing with dummies and stuff like that.
Which make us appreciate life more, by being in a hard time, we just appreciating just what we be giving, and make the most of it.
I know, man, it's crazy. But I think there is, like you're saying, there is something to it. There is something to returning to the roots of being a human being, man.
Yeah.
And, just being playful and interacting with people the way we've always done since the beginning of time. Not through a Zoom call, not through the phone, not from 3 meters away, man. Like, high-fiving, slapping on the back, wrestling a little bit, have a barbecue, cook some food, whatever. This is the way people have always existed. This is the meaning of life, man. To interact with people in that, fun, natural way. Like, and a lot of it's lost, what I mean? So you got to somehow get back into it and add it back into your life again.
Well, Eddie, for me, it's always been a pleasure to have you here. Consider you as a friend. So it's always great to share. I think the biggest thing we get here is actually sharing, people from different backgrounds and different, everything
Walks
different.
Of life, yeah.
Walks of life, get together here, share a laugh, share a little bit of life experience. So for me, I couldn't be happier to have you here, to have Ziggy here. I hope he comes back training because he was getting amazing, doing amazing jiu-jitsu. It was very impressive.
He's in love.
It was one of these, At that age, the competition becomes harder with love life and jiu-jitsu life. But we've all been there. We all understand, and hopefully he can come back very soon, and be back with us. And thanks for being here as well with us. It was.
You want to say anything else?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to you both. It's been fantastic for me, my family. I really, really appreciate everything you've done for us.
Thank you, man. We really appreciate it as well. Like you and your son and everybody involved. Like it's always been, really awesome, man, to have you guys here. Such a, amazing, respectful and kind family. And like, man, everybody needs to be like that. The more we can spread this kind of attitude between anybody is good for the world, man. So thank you so much for coming on. Very much appreciate listening, and thank you so much for being so open and honest and sharing so much stuff about you and your family and everything. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thank you, Eddie. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.